So, I'm going live, by the way. Today we have the great Scott Horton, guys. Was it chair of the Libertarian Institute, writer of an insane amount of amazing books, Provoked. I mean, just yeah, all of those ones on his right. They're great. Let me see here. Let me go ahead and actually pull
I
everybody.
published all these ones on my left here. These are by everybody else at the Institute.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've seen a bunch of the interviews actually recently that you've been doing with some of the guys. I can't remember. Empire of Lies was the newest one, I think, right, or something
Yeah,
like
Charles
that.
Goyette.
He was
Also,
great.
on the Trump assassination, Kent Silva.
Yeah, yeah, I love that one.
That's actually our very most recent.
And
And Joseph Solis Mullins did one on the death of liberalism and what comes next. Those are our latest three. And we got
nice.
more coming soon.
Dude, it's so funny. I don't get a chance to read as much nearly as I would like to, which is why I sort of kind of end up becoming the podcast head. And I'll just sit here and I'll just listen to you guys, you and Daryl Cooper. And I just listened to the one with him and Tucker Carlson today. I thought that was awesome. I loved that. That was so good.
Yeah.
But even the one Daryl's series that he's been doing with Tim Webb, I think is really cool too. The one with the Cold Wars and all that kind of stuff going on. I think all that stuff is so good.
I mean, our whole community is just really growing and it's really great. There's so many great anti-war guys out there.
Yeah.
I very much appreciate the feeling of being superfluous here, where like I could take a week off and it's all right because there's a bunch of dudes out here doing it, like good.
Yeah,
Good.
you got Clint Russell, you got
Yeah, I was just about to say him, man.
dude, he's awesome.
on
I
it
love
every
him.
day. Yeah.
And I'm also sort of kind of I'm a just in general this whole new space of sort of kind of I don't know if I consider myself the right. I actually sort of kind of I guess I'll start with this. So I grew up in DC, right? And my mom worked for the government. My dad was a sergeant major for DLA for 15 years, something like that, 20 years. My brother's a Purple Heart vet and all that kind of stuff. And I guess growing up in DC, you just sort of kind of see a lot of you see sort of kind of the rot of the system in and of itself when you're there, just by the fact that there's certain areas that are just owned by the I guess the politicians that just live there in Great Falls and all that kind of stuff, and you sort of kind of just grow up with a little bit of angst, if you will. Like I used to have a 2-foot pink mohawk with cornrows, man. I used to get down. That was my thing, and I was really into anarchism. And I, over time, was like, okay, that's ridiculous. Like that's you grow up, you learn, and I guess what I've sort of kind of stumbled upon is just that like I'm a big philosophy guy, and I really like political philosophy, and I think that people need to really sort of kind of have a little bit more realistic questions about how we run the system and not just sort of kind of abdicate our responsibility to just others in political office and let them run rampant and do all that kind of stuff. So I would like to sort of kind of start doing stuff like this where I interview people like you and just really nail down sort of kind of some of that. But I also want to talk about just like how you interact with people just on a day-to-day basis when it comes to politics and trying to get them to sort of kind of come to your side or persuade them in certain ways, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, sure. So, well, first of all, I mean, I'm a very anti-government guy, and I actually was very relieved to find out that there were libertarian anarchists. Because the only anarchists I knew were like communist hippie types. And then when I found out that like, no, there's anarcho-capitalism and there's this, entire body of work by these libertarian theorists about why, nope, you don't even need courts and you don't even need national defense and you don't even need none of this stuff, man. Or you do need courts, and defense, but you don't need a state for it. So that was at once a relief, like good, because I was tired of making excuses for like, well, of course you need courts and national defense. But then at the same time, of course, it's also a burden that like, oh, let me tell you about anarcho-capitalism. Like nobody wants to hear that. Nobody knows. You lost them at anarcho anything and they're not, you know what I mean? And after all, the world is all carved up in nation states, and it's gonna be like for our lifetimes, more or less. Although they do come and go, but they're replaced by new ones most of the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So, um, anarcho-capitalist theory is useful in a sense, in a lot of senses. I don't know, but mostly for what I'm about is I'm trying to just I'm trying to essentially save my own environment,
Yeah.
right? I want to retire and die of old age in my late 80s on the front porch in a
Yep. Yep.
free, peaceful country,
Hmm.
Um, and so I'm trying to abolish the empire toward that end. And, for preserving America by abandoning what we should not be doing in all these other theaters all around the world, the way our
Yeah.
government does. And so
And I did want to. I did
none of
too
my
want to
arguments
get into
really are
that a little
about
bit later.
anarchy, right? It's all just, arguing from all other things being equal, current day, like should we be doing what we're doing in Iran or not, rather
Yeah.
than like, oh, anarcho-capitalism is the solution to what's going on with Iran. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's useless. So, um, I basically argue from minarchism, most of the time, because what's the use? And I'm no expert in anarcho-capitalist theory or whatever, so I wouldn't be, the best at probably arguing the point. But
Yeah, no, I
um,
get that. I guess the question, because I'm not an anarchist anymore. I mean, that was a lifetime ago at this point, kind of thing.
sure.
I think I
Well,
have.
and if you were like an anarcho-leftist, that doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah, I
So
agree with
you'd
that.
have
Yeah,
to grow out of that at some point because
yeah,
it just doesn't, the property is either privately owned or it's owned by the state in the name of being owned by everyone. But now that's just called what it is, communism. There's no anarchy in that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
No, I agree with that. I mean, I sort of kind of, I guess, I, because I came from the space of sort of kind of just not liking the establishments, or maybe not the establishments, but the institutions themselves. Like the thought that I don't know, I feel as though things just no matter what end up becoming bloat. It becomes excess in a sense when you have a federal system that is as large as we have it. And so I just wonder sort of kind of, and I come from a place when I look at these different political philosophies, I don't necessarily per se think that any of them are, a complete right. They're completely right in any way. I sort of kind of think that all of the systems have their own little bit of goodness that we can take and try and figure out how to. That's what I think the best part of America was at the founding, was that we tried to take from all these Enlightenment thinkers and these other things and tried to put it together to create a system that was somewhat fair and somewhat accountable to itself. And obviously that system is sort of kind of breaking down in some ways, because I think some things have gotten hold of it that we have to address as a populace, but I don't know how we do that, especially with the amount of sort of kind of political illiteracy I think that some people have.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of kind of why I want to get into some of the, like, just what is libertarianism?
Well, look, the problem is government.
Yeah.
The problem is government. Harry Brown, the great libertarian writer and presidential candidate, he said, the problem is not so much the abuse of power. It is, but it's the power to abuse. And as long as it's there, it's going to be misused. And so, like, for example, and let's just say that there's no other choice, just for argument's sake, okay? Just for argument's sake. So there's no other choice, that we have to have drug prohibition to prevent the hard drugs from coming across the Mexican border, okay? Well, necessarily you are creating corrupt cops who take bribes to allow those drugs to come through. It's just part of it. It's built into the thing. You can preach about honor, but honor doesn't prevent money from being money, And so the more power that you have, that the national government has, then the more money there is invested in controlling what they do with it all, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you own some giant chicken concern, then you have to really lobby in your own self-defense all day just to keep them from taxing you right out of business, regulating you right out of business. But then while you're at it, you might as well try to bankrupt your competition and put them out of business if you can.
Yeah.
And then so the whole thing is who can bribe the
Yeah.
congressman and the regulator the most instead of who can participate on the market. And, you know, back to the anarchism, minarchism thing. Well, how about I could settle for some minarchism if the only job of the government was civil and criminal court systems and defense, you know, outward defense,
Mhm.
and leave everything else alone. Because then at least I could hear your argument that democracy might be fit to do those two things, right?
Mhm.
To make sure that the court systems are fair, the legislature makes sure that the court system stays fair.
Yeah.
But that's basically what the purpose of the legislature is, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, to keep the cops just barely well armed enough to keep us safe and not one revolver more, you know,
Yeah.
this kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and actually on
That should
that,
be, but then nothing else,
Yeah.
because you can't. The more things that you delegate them to do, the more things you're just giving them power over, as
Yeah.
Harry Brown would say. You're turning it into a political football now, and
Yeah.
you're making it really like you're turning it into a war of all against all. Who can control the government to control the resource
Mhm.
instead of just letting the prices float on the market?
Yeah. No, I can understand that. I mean, I do actually. So sort of kind of two questions on that a little bit, I guess, because I did have one here that was on that. So would the libertarian mindset when it comes to, for example, addressing monopolies, like, or if, I guess I wonder, is there any contradiction between, say, libertarianism and capitalism, in the sense that it sometimes breeds monopolies that then could, like with the robber barons or the coal wars kind of situation, where even the government at that point couldn't come in almost and really shut those things down, which, you know, I just wonder if there is some kind of contradiction there, if that makes sense.
Well, no, I mean, first of all, the government itself is the great monopoly,
Yeah.
right? That's the
yeah,
reason that you have them to turn to decide about these other monopolies on the market, right? Is because
enough,
they're the
yeah.
monopoly
Fair
on
enough.
doing whatever the hell they want. So as soon as you give them the power to break up monopolies, then you see now it matters. Is your president a Rockefeller guy or a Morgan guy?
Yeah.
Because if he's a Rockefeller guy, he's going to break up Morgan interests. And if he's a Morgan guy, he's going to break up Rockefeller interests. But none of
Yeah.
this has anything to do with serving the public good, right?
Yeah.
Again, you just turned it into a matter of a political vendetta. And when you look at, you know, so many of even alleged monopolies, although it's hard to point at any true monopolies,
Yeah.
even in history. But
Yeah.
even if you look at the closest ones, it's government intervention that makes it that way, right? Like, this is
And I
actually a
would-
pretty
yeah,
accurate
I agree
story
with
from
that,
what
yeah.
I've read. You ever see the movie Tucker about
Yeah.
the guy who came up with the new car?
Yeah.
But then Ford and GM went to the Congress to screw the guy.
Yeah.
And how did they get him? Because he had gotten a factory from the government as, you know, basically for free at the end of the Second World War. And so now they had him by the nuts and they were able to screw him. But it was all because of his competition didn't like the fact that he was better than them at a reasonable price. And so they ran him out of business using the power of the state to preserve their triopoly up there, right, between Ford and GM and Chrysler.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So, you know, when they went to break up Bill Gates' Microsoft, because Microsoft, when it came out in the Windows 95, I think it was in 95, but definitely by 98, I think it was in 95, they had their own browser, the Internet Explorer, built into the operating system. And they said, oh no, now you're like treading on Netscape, and you're by bundling your browser software into your operating system. Now this is an unfair competitive thing, Majig. What? Like, people use now Mozilla, Opera, whatever, right?
Google
I mean, and
Chrome,
Netflix,
whatever,
I think, not Netflix, Netscape turned into one of those, turned into Mozilla eventually anyway, right? But then what happened? As soon as the national government opened up a monopoly suit on Microsoft, Bill Gates became a political animal and opened up a giant lobbying firm, or bought a powerful lobbying firm in Washington, D.C., to protect Microsoft's interests now that the national government was preying on them.
Yeah.
And so now not only does he have this big lobby to lobby for in self-defense from the government regulators coming for his ass, but now he can bribe all these regulators. He's in the game. Now he can use the regulators against his enemies. No, you know who's got a monopoly? The other guy, Microsoft says, or I don't know exactly, but I bet you there are examples of that. But whatever. Point is that he didn't even have a lobbying firm until they went after him. And what they went after him for was a bunch of garbage. I mean, at the same time, IBM was selling computers, and they had an operating system, and they had a browser. So should the government have broke up IBM? IBM were the ones pushing for Microsoft to get broken up because they didn't like the Internet Explorer. Well, tough nuts, IBM. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then also like IBM is getting massive contracts and things like that.
Sure, of course, they're massive welfare.
It just expands and expands, and then just sort of kind of bloats up and becomes its own sort of kind of machine that's working for itself, that regardless of sort of kind of any of the existential outputs or inputs. You know what I mean? Like it's just sort of kind of, and that's obviously the problem we're seeing with like AI, all those kinds of different things. I mean, it's the same concept.
There's,
right?
the Austrian school economists have done great work showing about how cartels cannot last unless you invite your congressman along.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the incentive for the individual members of the cartel to cheat and undercut their competition is just too great. They can't last. But if you make it a matter of national government concern, or even your state government concern, no, it's good government and regulation. It's a public-private partnership. And they get to rig their prices at the expense of everybody else. I mean, what else do you expect it to happen? People act like government is some magical fairy dust that when you sprinkle it on a bunch of businessmen, a bunch of government employees, cops and stuff, that they all turn into just selfless angels and begin to operate only in the public interest. But of course, I'm sure you're familiar with the term regulatory capture, right? Which means that any company that's being regulated by the national or by the executive branch has every reason to figure out what kind of state dinners or what's their favorite titty bar or what do they got to do to get these regulators off their back to get a smiley face on their report card. And then if somebody tries to sue them for, say, pollution or whatever, like actual infringement on people's rights, then they go to the court and they go, look, we got a smiley face on our report card from the executive branch regulators. They said we did okay and we're within the limit. So as long as we're within the limit that we bribe them to set where we like it or whatever it is, then we're good. And then the court will say, case dismissed, and you don't get your tort because, they have immunity based on the executive branch regulation that they control. I would argue, and, I'm sure a lot of libertarians would argue that this is really why they created the U.S. Constitution in the first place, regulatory capture. And in fact, Hamilton says that I think it's in the Federalist Papers. I'm pretty sure it's in one of the Federalist Papers. I know I've read Hamilton. It might have been in a letter that he wrote, but I think it was in the Federalist Papers where he's saying, look, we want to permanently entwine the needs and purposes of the state with that of the upper class so that it is in each other's interest to perpetuate each other and for the greater stability of the country, right? But so that means immediately, right? Like the name of the game is corruption. The name of the game, democracy isn't about like people's opinions and rights. Democracy is about corporations and their representatives fighting over the spoils, over what the government has control over.
He owned he was a surveyor and owned large swaths of land out there before the beginning of the Revolutionary War. It's not like the entirety of, like, I believe in I guess like societal myths. Like I think they're useful in some ways or whatever, right? Like the societal myth that, we're the founding fathers were the perfect whatever. That sounds great, but at the end of the day, they had personal interests, and George Washington was just like everybody else, and him intertwining his surveyorship and land ownership that he had into the federal government actually created a lot of the sort of kind of wealth and everything that they had. So I that makes sense. And then also just the combination of that with corporations and how then they can use that to then just fill their coffers and all of that. That I understand all that. That makes sense. Okay. Well, I think that one, yeah, that checks out.
You know what? You know what? Let me recommend a great article for you.
Yes, sir.
I can't really do it justice here, but you'd really like it, okay? It's called Left and Right,
Okay.
The Prospects for Liberty
Okay.
by Murray Rothbard.
Oh, Murray Rothbard. Yeah, you recommend him all the time. Let me see here.
Yeah, so he's, for very good reason, he's really considered to be the founder of modern American libertarianism. And he wrote a hell of a lot on a lot of subjects, man, and including, you know, a lot of great libertarian essays. And this one's from 1965. Left and Right, The Prospects for Liberty. Did you find it there at Mises or at the Libertarian Institute? Okay, great.
Yeah.
So you really get a kick out of it. And basically he's saying, okay, look, rewind, go back to the beginning of America, okay? Well, in fact, he starts with, I guess, he says, the conservatives are the pessimists. They think time is on the commies' side.
Yeah.
And so they're determined to win these short-term victories at the expense of the long-term. But they're wrong. Communism is stupid, and they should not be so pessimistic. All that is going to fall apart. And we should have short-term pessimism, but long-term optimism, because we know that freedom works, and we know how it works. And here's how it works.
Yeah.
Okay. And his point being that not specifically the American Revolution, but yes, also the American Revolution. But overall, the revolution that mattered was all pre-Marx. It was the revolution against feudalism and for contracts and property rights. Because with contracts and property rights, that's how a regular guy can move up by improving his property and exchanging it on the market. Right. And so when this is what caused eventually the Industrial Revolution, and all this other stuff came from that first. This was the invention, was, you know, liberty, essentially. And so then the American Revolution is tied right in that time period where the settlement of the East Coast is really taking place, you know, and not just the East Coast, but eventually, you know, into Texas and whatever.
Yeah.
Were taking place, you know, under this mindset of land ownership. And so, but then, so he's saying the right in this context, going back then, the right is the philosophy of the old order, of the old landowners and the church and the king and the way things used to be. And the liberals, they weren't commies because there were no commies yet. They weren't any kind of socialists or anything because you didn't have Marx.
Yeah.
So the liberals were the ones who believed in property rights and business and capitalism because that was freedom.
Okay.
And then what happened was goddamn Marx came, and Marx essentially demanded to see the results of liberalism without the freedom to make it available, right?
Yeah.
And what happened was it was because of the wars. Marx saw the way that the kings and whatever governments were able to marshal these vast resources to go to war. Like, oh, you can't feed the poor in peacetime, but all of a sudden you can feed a 10 million man army to go to war. That's funny. It looks like you could have been doing this all along for everybody kind of thing. That was sort of the idea.
Yeah.
And although, of course, the government is just completely confiscating and destroying wealth by the, you know, uncountable degree in order to feed those armies and wage those wars. Yeah. But anyway, so Marx came and essentially turned what should have been the capitalist side into the commie side. So now the left were even more status than the right, when the state kind of already, the right kind of already were status. But now the communists, they're totalitarians, dude. They're completely as status as you could possibly be. So the liberty-minded end up allied with the right again, because the right, as statist as they are, ain't as statist as that, right? And so so there's good reason to do so, right? But it just means that essentially, as you survey American history, just since the founding of the National Republic, that you could see where liberty is the true American way. And then everything to the left and everything to the right is a deviation from that. Everything to the
can,
left
yeah, I
meaning
can
more.
agree with that.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, no,
So
I
that's
agree with
what,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So look, just read your Rothbard, man. I'm telling you, the left and right, and this goes for your crowd too. Left and right, the prospects for liberty is a
I got
great
you.
one to get started. Read Anatomy of the State, War, Peace, and the State.
Yeah, I've heard you recommend
There's
that one
a
many
short
times.
book, not too long called The Libertarian Manifesto.
I have
Or
read
no, it's
that.
called
I have
For
read
a
that
New
one.
Liberty.
Yeah.
Sorry, For a New Liberty, The Libertarian Manifesto. What has government done to our money and the case against the Fed? So you can learn about central banking and the boom bust cycle.
Actually, I have a question on.
Oh, one
if
more
it's,
fun article you'll
yeah,
like.
yeah.
Confessions of a Right-Wing Liberal.
Oh, okay.
You'll
All
you'll
right.
get a kick out of
I
it.
think I've
Okay,
heard of
go
that
ahead.
one, not from you, but I think I've heard of that one from someone else.
It's a great piece, man.
Well, so okay, I have. Well, let's try and real quick. So one that I wanted to nail down before I sort of kind of hopped into a little bit of more like foreign aid stuff, which is what I was about to get into, because I actually was like, man, I'm worried about the fiat currency, or not even, but the petrol dollar base sort of kind of. I've been watching a lot. I watch Mario Nawfal all the time. That's sort of kind of just one of the guys that, like, while I'm at work on the forklift, I'm just like learning about the world.
Cool.
It's, well, I get lucky, I can do that. But so, what's it
Be
called?
careful.
I'm fine. But what's it called? They can't stop me. But so, recently, Karen Kwiatkowski, I believe. And
Yeah, just
Brandon,
forget the W. Just Katowski.
Oh, Katowski and Brandon Weichart are some of my favorites that they've been having on, because I think they're pretty good about that stuff. You know what? We'll just get into the foreign policy stuff. Fuck it.
They are both absolutely fantastic.
Actually, I do want to ask this question. I'm sorry. So, okay, real quick, since when we're talking about libertarianism, we're talking about basically abolishing, for the most part, at least as much of the federal government as possible. Is sort of kind of the gist of it, as far as I can. Like, as far as is reasonable as among basically a populace, is sort of kind of where I'm thinking we're at, right, with that.
Yeah. Well, I want to, get rid of as much of the state government as possible too, right?
I mean,
this
see
is
that too. But so my
Ayn
question
Rand.
on that,
Ayn
though,
Rand was not really a libertarian, and I'm not sure if she really coined this phrase or not. I think she coined the phrase "the night watchman state."
no,
Right?
yeah,
We
okay.
want the least amount of security forces absolutely necessary to prevent a worse one from replacing it, and that's it.
Well, so real quick, so immigration's a big issue, so I just wanted to ask about that a little bit. How would a libertarian state deal with immigration? I don't know if you're open borders, closed borders. I don't think I've really ever hear you talk about it ever. I just sort of kind of, just a temperature check, just wonder what you thought about that sort of kind of.
Yeah. Well, I've moved right on the borders over the years because it's really not even a matter of immigration anymore. Now it's mass migration of peoples. And I don't think America can deal with that right now at
Well,
all.
I think it's an infrastructural
can.
problem more than it is almost like a you know what I mean? Like it's how many people can I let in my house and try and feed, really, at the end of the day, is sort of kind of the way Dave Smith talks about it. I think is about,
I'll tell you what, man, this is one of those issues that, going back when I was younger, I avoided it mostly just because of how divisive it is.
I agree.
Where I'm trying to get everybody, no matter what you believe in at all, to want to support hard money and peace.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I'm on about immigration all the time, then I'm telling half of the people, don't listen to me. I'm only talking to these other people.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. And so I really have just avoided it mostly. And I guess my previous feeling on the thing was basically we ought to have like the proverbial chain link fence, but with a gate where somebody's checking IDs and making sure that people aren't convicted felons from wherever they're from. And then why not let them in? I don't know.
Yeah.
What we've seen lately, really in the Biden years, and see, they lied about this in the Obama years, where like anyone turned away was counted as deported. So they pulled a real sleight of hand there. And then in the Biden years, just as a reaction to Trump, basically, they said, we're just completely opening the borders. And they worked with the United Nations to finance, to bring people from everywhere, to funnel them into the country. It wasn't even just like, if you can get here, it was like, we will pay you to come here. And then you have these massive programs in the country for anyone who comes in, even if they're illegal immigrants, they get immediately to sign up for your local school, even if, you know, you don't know who these kids are, where they're from, or what they've been through.
Yeah.
Now they're sitting next to your kid in second grade, you know, whatever.
I mean, my whole thing with it is basically
and the hospitals, the welfare, you know, free groceries, all rent assistance.
Again, it's an infrastructure
and,
problem.
Loans.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. No, it ain't fair. It's extortion against the people who already live here. And I used to like quip that.
But honestly, it's extortion for the people coming here too. You know what I mean? In the sense that like they end up getting put in the same position as everybody else. Not necessarily.
True.
You know what I mean?
That's
like
true.
It's just as bad for them when they get here, and then there's not anything for them to do, and then they have to get put on the welfare system or whatever it is, and then that ends up being, you know, it's all around without. The way I think about it, I think Dave Smith explains it very well when he talks about, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but the way he talked about, what's it called? The open door, closed door sort of kind of thing. Like, hey man, that's what we should do, is should have a door, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, the reason that it's a big problem is because we don't have judges to be able to adjudicate the cases of the people coming in. We don't, and we're not even trying to figure out a way to fund it. Which again, maybe that's, you know, like I said, we should probably take down most of these systems, but it's like, you know, that's what I'm wrestling with as a person. It's sort of kind of like how to deal with both parts of that as like a compassionate human being, but also, hey man, this is getting a little much. We got to figure this out, and it's bad for everybody in all spaces. So you know what I mean? I don't know. But I understand. That makes sense. I appreciate it. Was there more of a thought that you had, sir, or?
No, I guess just that, you know, when you're bringing in tens of millions of people, that the country just can't support that. I used to say that, like, when people would say it's not fair that you're bringing in all these immigrants and then they get on welfare, I'd say, well, that's your fault for being a socialist then. Let's abolish the welfare state. But then it's like, okay, well, anyway, they're not abolishing the welfare state. And so still all these immigrants are coming in and are taxing essentially all the people who are already from here. And they just got no right to whatsoever. And that goes for the legal immigrants too. It's just completely crazy. So yes, we should abolish the welfare state, but for immigrants first. And by the way, it should also be completely illegal. And I know it's always been like this, but it sucks. It should be completely illegal for immigrants to come here and get government jobs. How in the world can you be from somewhere else and then get a job bossing other people around?
I do have a problem with that.
You know, it makes no sense whatsoever.
Issue, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm sick and tired of that shit. They shouldn't be allowed to vote either. You know, government employees and immigrants should not be allowed to vote.
Government, I could stand by that. If you're a government employee, you should not have it.
Absolutely not. No, oh, they're supposed servants.
But I love that. That's a good one. I haven't thought of that.
If they're servants, how in the world is it up to them to decide what they should be doing or not? Yeah, it should not be at all.
I guess that that checks out logically.
Of course. And that goes for government contractors too. Any business that makes their money off of government contracts, none of their employees get to vote. None of the owners or employees get to vote either.
That's drastic, but I'm down to ride with you on it.
What the hell is this, Russia? Look, man, we've got conflicts of interest everywhere. We need to minimize those.
Yeah,
that's all. No unions, no government employee unions. I mean, I'm against unions pretty much anyway, but especially government employee unions should be absolutely illegal at all levels.
I'm a little bit more on the Daryl Cooper side of it with that one.
Well, you and Daryl Cooper are a couple of Bolsheviks.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm okay with being called names, even by my heroes. But anyway, I'm just kidding. So
Daryl Cooper's a Nazi commie.
Oh, we're doing this one. We're hitting them with the all right. But,
no, they're all mad at him because he went on Tucker and said great stuff again.
Dude,
they don't know what to do with it. He's like, you know, if you believe in our religion that we all say we believe in, pretty hard to stand by this war, Tucker. And they're like, no, no,
I mean,
pulling
man,
their hair out, man.
I'm not even Christian, and I'm like, I mean, he's doing his thing. This is wrong. It's all right. Nothing's wrong.
He's killing it. So good. Yeah.
So good.
The commie Nazi thing was a joke, everyone. Daryl's my guy, man. What are you talking about?
But anyway, okay, so I did, since we got, like 20 minutes left, can we get into the Iran war stuff a little bit? And
sure.
Kind of the foreign policy, geopolicy stuff. So I just got to, because I subscribe, and I keep telling people, and they don't believe me. And I'm like, we're in World War III. All right, this is my stance is that I think we are currently in the beginning stages. I think that a lot of things have kicked off. I don't think that necessarily that this war will be fought the same way as the last one and all that kind of stuff. But I do think that when Trump kicked the proverbial beehive of Iran, that like it set off a chain reaction in which I don't know if I mean, yes, we could leave the region, but I think at this point we've sort of kind of shot the load, if you will, and now they're aware, and now it's sort of kind of a situation in which, I mean, China is I mean, just today that I don't believe this. Okay, I do believe that we're running out of munitions. I don't think that'll fucking stop them. I don't think this doesn't stop these people. They're gonna, like Larry Johnson was talking about it. He was like, hey, they're just gonna make better dummy bombs for a little bit. They'll transform a couple dummy bombs into some sort of kind of strategically guided missiles, and then whatever, there you go. And it's a strategic blunder, and it's obviously a ridiculous fucking thing to do. But that doesn't mean that it won't get done. And I am worried that I guess what I'm worried is that Trump has found himself in the position, right, where there is no good way out of this, and it will end with, no matter what, the end of the U.S. petrodollar, I think, in my opinion, because Iran will now basically have a sort of kind of the Robert Pape thing. They'll end up having a strategic, a sphere of influence. Then they'll start working with other countries, being able to use that petrodollar. The petrodollar is based on the whole concept that we can ensure that oil can be sold and transported, and we're guaranteeing security, whatever. So it's like I see the dominoes just getting ready to sort of kind of tip over just a little bit, and I'm like, I wonder what you sort of kind of think about that sort of kind of possibility or whatever.
Well, look, I don't really know what's going to happen to the petrodollar. It's been eroded over the years. Countries are opting out of as much as they can already. Mm-hmm. So I'm afraid I can't tell you that I have like a very good line graph in my head about, what it all means.
No, I understand
for the dollar itself. I can tell you that you're not wrong about the loss of American power here. In the Iraq and Afghan wars, we used to say that really the high watermark of the American empire was in 2003, because they couldn't control anything after they went in there and toppled the government, and it was all downhill from there, and it was all downhill in terms of American power from there, although with major fits and starts since then,
Yeah.
But we ended up leaving Iraq in humiliation. We kind of helped the supermajority win the war, and then they told us to get the hell out. Came back later in the name of the ISIS war.
Yeah.
Completely lost Afghanistan. Didn't even try to win Libya. Didn't dare get on the ground there to help the jihadists finish their victory. Oops. That whole place has gone completely to hell. It spread war throughout North and West Africa. And so they're humiliated. But, as Daryl Cooper was pointing out on our show, Provoked, live on Thursday nights, that, look, if you're Russia and China watching that, if you're Iran or even, our European allies or Asian allies, anyone watching that, you're going, okay, well, look, to coin a phrase here, Bush and Obama, they sent these Marines on a fool's errand, trying to tame the Pashtuns. You're going to pacify the Pashtun warrior tribesmen of, prehistory out there. Just by killing enough of them or sweet talking the other ones or whatever your idiot counterinsurgency plan is. Like, obviously that didn't work, but that's unworkable.
Yeah.
Right. But really doesn't have anything to do with the question of like, what would happen if America went up against Russia in a big tank battle?
Yeah.
What would happen if America went up against China in a big air-sea battle? Well, we don't know. We've been chasing Pashtuns around Marja.
Yeah.
And so nobody got to see that, right? We got F-22s and I don't know, 22s, definitely F-35s bombing Afghanistan. The hell out of here.
Yeah.
But now this is different. The Iran war is totally different because Iran, they're not really a third world power. I don't know what you call them, second world or however you categorize it, but they're
Sure,
like a
yeah.
they're like a lower mid-tier power, right? They're not a major state, but they've not been at war since 1989. And they've had a long time to develop this missile deterrent.
Mm-hmm.
And many people told you so. Many, including me, but a lot of other people told you so too, that missile deterrent should serve as a deterrent. It's enough to keep us out of there. And who cares? It's not like they're making nukes anyway. And even if they were, it doesn't mean they're going to use them. And even if they did, doesn't mean they can hit America with them. And even if they could, doesn't mean we got to give them reason to, right? Like this doesn't have to be the national security threat that they make it.
That North Korea, that Kim Jong-un is like the most vilified person ever, or not Kim Jong-il? Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, the father.
Yeah. It's like he's the most vilified person right now, just running around. He's like, hey, I mean, don't get me wrong. Horrible state. Obviously, horrible, whatever. But at the end of the day, we stopped fucking with them. You know what I mean? And what are you going to say? It's like Gaddafi. I mean, he got sodomized in the street, a couple months later or whatever. It's crazy. But so do you think that, I guess, because what I think is sort of kind of the posturing of Iran, especially at this point, within the last, call it week or two, I think, has realized that yes, they are at this point they have the upper hand. They're doing the strikes. They're the ones who hold the escalation trap or ladder, I guess. At this point, they have escalation dominance, I guess would be the word, and they're already working with the Yemenis and the Yemen and Houthi fighters and stuff like that, and they can close off that whole area. And then also with the addition of the invasion of Spain or whatever that was, it sort of kind of creates a situation in which it makes me really worried about just, I don't know, just what the future holds when it comes. And I know you don't have a crystal ball, so I'm not going to necessarily say that. But what should the United States position as far as foreign policy in this? Because we've already debased basically the entire recent region almost at this point. Should it just be to pull back and then focus on sort of kind of infrastructure and trying to figure out how to resupply, restock, do all that? You know what I mean? Is that the function that you think we should sort of kind of go towards? Or
yes, we should close every base everywhere in the world and bring everything home.
Yeah.
And cut the military budget at least in half. The Navy can protect our shores just fine. Air Force and Navy can protect our shores just fine. We don't need nothing really but a Marine, a reserve infantry force. Nobody's going to invade this country.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd have to be loco, man. Everybody in the world knows how well armed Americans are. We don't even need a standing army to protect us from foreign invasion. No one would try it. A foreign army attempting to occupy anywhere in America, they would simply be cut to ribbons by the locals. Yeah. Forget it.
It's a warrior culture. We're out here. Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right. The American Pashtuns, man. Try. There's a quote from Abraham Lincoln I have in my book where he says, if he says all the armies of Europe and Asia combined could not drink from the St. Lawrence River or make a track in the Blue Ridge Mountains in a trial of 1,000 years. And if America's ever to die, America will either live forever or die by suicide. Yeah. Nobody can mess with us.
Well, that's sort of
So
what it seems like we're doing at this point, almost with the
that's
actions.
right.
You know what I mean? Like it's one
That's
of those
right.
things where it's like, look, I mean, obviously everybody told him. We all know. I mean, it's mind-boggling I mean, it's you know what I mean? Yeah.
It is. It is mind-boggling. Look, here's what it is. This always happens. It's a cliche. Like, I don't know what age you got to be before you first learn. All empires fall. Civilizations can die. And usually what happens is they overextend themselves during good times, and then they can't figure out how to get back right again. And that's what happens over and over. And that's what's happening to us right now. And it's a cruel kind of mega imitation of our bin Ladenite enemies, that we are killing ourselves to get them, to get whoever else Israel sicks us after or whatever out there, and the arms merchants. But it's hollowing out the United States of America. Every bit of that wealth that they take for militarism is at the expense of the American people. And not just that, but the opportunity cost, where all that could have been investment in improving goods and services and people's standard of living in the country, and to invest in things that generate even more capital and more wealth for more investment and further increased standards of living. All of that is destroyed by doing this instead. And, Ike Eisenhower had a great speech. Everyone's familiar with the military industrial complex speech on his last day in office, but he also gave a speech. You can watch it. It's called the Cross of Iron speech, where he talks about how many schools you could make for the cost of one battleship, and how many hospitals you could make for the cost of one long range bomber, and how the American people are paying a price. We are sacrificing our society in the name of national defense. So then the perennial question must be, just how much national defense do we need? Is America really supposed to be the dominant power in the Middle East, Eastern Europe, Eastern Asia, and Africa and South America forever? The middle part of North America is supposed to be the dominant military power throughout all of the old world and the new forever. We know, as we're recording this, our national debt is $40 trillion, and that the annual interest on the debt is more than the $1.5 trillion that they're spending on the empire itself. It's absolutely unsustainable. It couldn't be any more clear if I just put a gun to my head right now and blew my own brains out. That's what America is doing right now. And we could not have had more irresponsible leadership than the Bushes and the Clintons, Biden and McCain, and these scum who have seized control of our national government apparatus, never even mind post-World War II, but just since the end of the first Cold War, in the days of H.W. Bush. They just blew, as you say, shot our whole wad when they didn't need to.
Yeah.
When they could have been, as Bush Sr. would say, but not do, they could have been prudent and husbanded those resources to improve the lives of the American people. And it's not like you could say, but yeah, Scott, if we hadn't have done this, Saddam Hussein would have conquered the whole Middle East and then Europe. Shut up. He would not either. He couldn't conquer Iran with all our help for 8 years. Now he's going to conquer, just because he could take Kuwait, now he's going to take Saudi and Bahrain and UAE and Iran, and next Paris, and after that Berlin, and like, get the hell out of here. Oh no, Scott, if it hadn't have been for us, then what? Germany would have conquered all of Europe again. Nuh-uh, they would not either. They would have joined up an EU army with Britain and France and Poland. They would have signed a new treaty with Russia, and they'd have had peace and prosperity on the European continent. It would have been none of our business. You'd have never had this ridiculous war in Ukraine or any of this from America insisting on continuing to stay in Europe. And so far, you could argue that they've kept the peace in East Asia, but then again, they oversaw North Korea obtaining nuclear weapons. They did a hell of a lot to cause it to happen, and surely not enough to prevent it. And obviously they like it that way, because then they get to threaten our allies in South Korea and Japan with North Korea and say, what would you do without us? We're here to keep North Korea at bay. But of course, if that comes to a fight, you're talking about atomic bombs, and not just them, but our guys dying too. And when the real reason for being there is to try to hem in China, which we can't fight them in a conventional war either. It would almost certainly devolve to the use of nuclear weapons and general nuclear war if we got in a fight with China. So this is where I'd quibble with you about World War III kicking off here, is there's a lot going on, but World War III means America and Russia and China are exchanging H-bombs, right? Europe is on America's side, China's on Russia's, and we're destroying each other's cities with thermonukes. That's World War III. What we're in now is the second Cold War, right? Where Iran and Ukraine are Korea and Vietnam, where these are our proxy wars that we're fighting against our Cold War enemies, but safely by way of non-nuclear armed proxy countries like Ukraine and Iran. So cross your fingers, pray it doesn't turn into World War III. But the point is we shouldn't be having a new Cold War at all either. It's completely insane.
Yeah, the whole
thing the first Cold War was against Stalin and Mao and the death cult of global communism. Well, that's just over, man. So who cares if China's dominant in Asia and Russia's dominant in Eastern Europe instead of the United States? I don't care.
I would agree with you, and I think risking American lives is just crazy. I mean, the whole concept is crazy, and I know you got to get out of here in a second. Yeah. So, two things I just sort of kind of wanted to ask you real quick. Have you ever heard of the Dre dossier?
No.
Okay, this one is a little bit more of like a pet project. I'm trying to sort of kind of inform people. She's a very small channel. I don't know her at all, but I like her interviews, or not interviews, but her reporting. She's an independent journalist. Sorry, go ahead.
Send me a link.
Oh, I got you. She's really great. Her whole thing is basically on. There's this thing called the National Design Studio, which is basically just a it's a proxy of Doge that basically is the new evolution of Doge, but now is part of the beautification of our federal government websites. And it's a interesting little deep dive into how they're sort of kind of just figuring out ways to take more of your freedoms and liberties away, which is great. It's great. She's a little bit of a lefty, but I still love her. It doesn't matter. I don't care. And then the last question I had for you, what are your favorite bands, favorite music, favorite artists, anything like that? I'm a musician, audio engineer, obviously producer and stuff like that. I make music all the time. So I just want to know, like, I've never heard you ever talk about, I don't think anybody ever asked you. I just want to know, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you'd be disappointed. I'm old.
Oh, I'm not. I promise you.
So my number one is Beastie Boys.
Okay.
Number two is Public Enemy.
Okay.
And then after that, a lot, but just, 80s skate punk and some like hardcore and a little bit of metal, not too much metal, but some metal, but mostly just punk rock and like old hip hop.
Well, if you ever get a
free Dr. Dre hip hop.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm a big hip hop head. I am sorry in the sense that I am a future and past hip hop head. I like it all. I mean, except for maybe currently. Currently is a little bit rough, but that's not the point. But what's it called? There is one band that I think you might like. They're the first punk band, I believe. They're three black dudes from Detroit called Death. Have you ever heard of them?
No.
So they were before the Velvet Underground, as well as also before the Ramones and everything. They had gone and seen an Alice in Chains concert, Alice Cooper concert back in like the 70s. And then basically they were like, oh, we got to figure this out and do this. I'll send you a link to them too, but they sound wild. They sound like 90s.
Are they before the New York Dolls?
Oh, I believe so, but it might be about the same time. I'm talking these guys are like within probably months before the Velvet Underground and them all really started getting together and all that. So it's possible. Who knows? But it's really cool. They didn't end up getting famous because they're three black dudes from Detroit in the 70s. And but you know what I mean? Trying to do death metal, or not even death metal, but punk and stuff. It was interesting. But I'll send you a link. It's a good time. But thank you for stopping in, man. You're the greatest. I appreciate it. I hope we could do this maybe again one day in the future. Whatever, we can talk about whatever you want. Doesn't matter to me. I'm whatever. But I appreciate it, and thank you.
Absolutely happy to do it. Read your Rothbard. Oh wait, and read your Horton. These books are for sale.
I got you. I don't have them.
Enough Already and Fool's Errand.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And then also make sure to check him out on Provoked, as well as on any of his other Scott Horton show, any of those shows that he does weekly. He does awesome stuff.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Scott. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, man. You too.